Well, it's been a huge week on the recruiting trail. Major commitments are rolling in for both football and baseball, and a few names are turning heads. We're breaking down what these moves mean, who's rising fast, and what could be coming next. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Mississippi State, your daily podcast on the Mississippi State Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Go to FanDuel.com. I'm Jaron Sport, National College Football writer at Athlon Sports. That's Landon McBride. We've got a packed show for you today with a ton of recruiting news. We talked about it just last week. Major recruiting weekend for football, the last one of the summer, and some commitments started rolling in. We also had some teases of commitments rolling in, so probably going to be some good news in the next week or a couple weeks. And then baseball, I also got some more commitments, and they've shot up to the number one class in the transfer portal. We'll talk about that, and then we'll end it off, of course, on Monday with our top dog of the week. So first, let's get into some of the football news. So the biggest name, let's start with actually a guy that wasn't on the visit. It was Jax Pope, the safety from Buford, Georgia. He's a guy that I talked about last week. Really liked him. He announced his commitment on Saturday. He wasn't a part of the official visits or anything, but he has done, obviously, some visits. And him canceling the Stanford visit kind of made it, things started going in motion. He was probably headed this way. But one guy that did commit while on visit was Luke Hutchinson, the tight end from Nashville, Tennessee, 6'3.5", 235 pounds. So far, we've gotten two commits from we set, what was it, a 4, the over-under? So yeah. We'll see what ends up happening going forward.
Yeah, it's a good start. Like I said, there's been a lot of teases. So over the next couple of days, I expect us to be way under on our 4 by probably by Wednesday. We'll probably be well under. It seems, from the reports that are reading, the pictures that are coming out, what you're reading on social media from the different recruits, it seems that it's a very successful weekend. Like it really seemed like they knocked it out of the park. They were still able to sell the vision despite there being, actual results on the field that aren't great. But it seems like things are trending in the right direction. I think Luke Hutchinson, great addition. We've talked about how important tight ends can be in Lebby's offense. So getting one in, especially good size, 6'3.5", 235 in high school. I mean, you project that to probably about 6'4", 250 by the time he's really playing some snaps for you. I mean, if he keeps the athleticism, that's a big get.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at some of the stuff, a lot of the official visitors have already left and tweeted about their experience, loved their experience there, and you kind of expect that. You're not going to have someone come out and just say, yeah, it was terrible. Like, a lot of guys are going to talk about how great it was, but also a ton of offers came in. Like, and I can't even go through all the offers because there's so many offers that have come in this weekend. I mean, I'll just mention one. Joel Wyatt was one that tweeted out. He's a 4-star wide receiver, defensive back in the 2026 class. He tweeted out his offer. So there's a bunch of offers, and there's also people that announced their commitment dates. Chris Carbon, I don't know if he announced his commitment date, but he did announce he's down to Mississippi State and Georgia Tech. So that's one to look out for here in the future. He's a 3-star outside linebacker, edge rusher. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up going. Obviously, we know about TJ White, the linebacker, and Darion Albert, who were her teammates that were, I believe, on the visit. They've announced that they were going to commit together. That's going to be July 1st. So we'll see what ends up happening from that. But hopefully it's all positives coming out of this, and you can take this momentum from the visit. We talked last week, it kind of sucked for Mississippi State that they were going on the visit and then going to take some time to commit. But they're only taking like 8 days, 9 days, whatever it was when they left. So that's not that long.
No, that's not too much of a break. I mean, if you could get one of them, that's big. If you get both of them, that's a huge get. And yeah, it's interesting. So when I said 4, I honestly thought we would have 4 announced by the time this comes out. Like, I really thought there would be more, like, quicker commitments.
Hey, with the recruiting world, we could get some overnight that you could get a ton. Yeah. So it's all. I mean, we talked about it. What was that when we did the Brian O'Connor podcast, and then literally 30 minutes later, he announces he's coming to Virginia. I mean, that stuff just pops all the time.
Yeah,
you just never know when it's going to pop. So more commitments could be in the works, but I think you're going to probably see several throughout this week, and then obviously July 1st is 8 days away. So I mean,
big one.
You're going to start seeing the snowballs starting to roll.
Yeah, in between that and then all of these new offers that came out, it seemed like so many offers. It was just on Twitter looking at, just scrolling through, and it's like, oh, announced an offer, announced an offer, announced an offer, announced an offer. I'm like, calm down, guys. Like, let me catch up here. But it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, because it does seem like this is the base of a good recruiting class.
Right.
But they're kind of missing like the gems of the class, not like the hidden gems, the guys who are going to become very good and outplay their star ranking. I'm talking about those like flagship type recruits that you kind of hang your hat on and be like, yes, we can recruit, we can compete with them. You're kind of missing those guys right now, but it's a very good base for a recruiting class.
Yeah, and you still got a lot of work to do because you are the 54th ranked class on On3, 46th on 24/7, 49th on Rivals. So you're not in that top 25 range, which we believe this class can be, and that's obviously what they're striving to be. And so there still is a lot of work to do before you hit that point. And so we'll see what ends up happening. But I definitely think it was good to have Brody McCorder on campus. Mentioned that last week. That's obviously a big thing. Anytime you can have your quarterback there helping recruit some of these guys. And, hopefully you start pulling off some of these commits. TJ White, 4-star linebackers. That's a big commitment if you can get his. So hopefully you can finish this up by having a top 25 class. I said you're probably more around the 30, 35 range, but even to get to that point, you got a lot of work to do, because right now you're hovering around 50.
Yeah, there's still a lot of work to do, and that's probably part of what we're seeing a lot of those offers going out. Maybe they're getting some intel, or, they're hearing from some of these recruits that maybe weren't on this visit. They're like, hey, you're kind of out of the running. So it's like, okay, that's a guy we thought we had. Next man up. Let's offer this. So there's probably a lot of that. So it'll be interesting to see how many of those these new offers that just went out are guys that they're really in the mix for, and how long before we start seeing those guys come on visits and all of that. See what happens with all the new people that we haven't been talking about for the last couple of weeks.
Well, and I thought, Jax Pope I've obviously raved about, but that's now their third safety, I believe, committed in the class. So they've done a lot of work there. Obviously, we know the offensive line needs work, and they've got a lot of guys there. But one position that we've talked about that needs a lot of work that they are putting in the work on was tight end. And Adam Lamb was already committed. He was the lone commitment. Now you get Luke Hutchinson. So you've already added 2 tight ends in this class. So they are identifying their issues, and they are attacking them hard. Now, when I go through their class, I would like to see a little more defensive guys, and maybe that starts with TJ White and some guys like that. I mentioned the 3 safeties, but you have 1 linebacker commitment. You have 1 cornerback commitment. So it still remains to be seen on some of this. You got a defensive lineman commit. I think only 1 of those as well. So there's still a lot of work to do, especially defensively, because we know how good the offense will be with Lebby, like once he starts getting things rolling, because that's his track record. But the one issue that we've seen historically with offensive-minded coaches is the ones that fail as a head coach are because they focus too much on offense in the portal. And you have to have more of a balance. The ones that do better are the ones that have more balance.
Yeah, exactly. He has to, and some of that's also going to come down to the defensive coordinator or coordinators, I guess. I know one of them really calls the plays, but we got the whole like kind of co-DC thing going on. They have to be able to coach up too, because yes, we've talked about there's a lack of talent, but you have to be able to get more out of these players, because you're not going to have 7 5-stars on your defense like some schools in the SEC will. So you're going to have to get the 3 stars, the 4 stars, and coach them up and put them in situations to be able to compete. And got to identify the right guys. And we'll see if they keep doing it. Maybe that's why there's not a lot. They haven't found the guys that really fit what they're trying to build, and they're still searching for them. But
right,
you got to have a pickup on the defensive side of the ball in the recruiting soon.
Yeah, you do. And again, TJ White would be the big one at linebacker. You don't need a ton of linebackers committed in a class. Try to get about 2, 3, depending on the year, even 1 would be acceptable. But if you get TJ White on the class as well, and then we mentioned Carbon, who's an edge outside linebacker that adds to your D-line recruit. I do want to see the D-line more in the 4-5 range. Honestly, that's usually what I like to see. And so only 1 is a little cause for concern. Now, again, the transfer portal has changed the game where you can fill some stuff with the portal, so that makes things nicer. But still a lot of work to do, but great start to the week with 2 commitments so far, and we'll see what happens going forward. But all right, well, coming up next, we got to talk about baseball. They've added 2 more players in the transfer portal. That's bumped them up to the number 1 class. How big of an impact will they be? We'll talk about that coming up next. Well, summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I know a lot of people have used FanDuel, and they track their favorite matchups, and the apps keep it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. My favorite thing about FanDuel, though, is it's easy to use. It's a fast payout and makes even regular season games feel like the must-watch events. It's awesome. And I also love the same game parlays. You see someone that's doing well in the game, you throw out some more money on them. You see someone doing poor, you throw out money on that. Whatever you like to do, love the same game parlay feature. Now, if you're new to FanDuel, listen up. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, so the transfer portal doesn't just affect football. Obviously, baseball is in the middle of it. Ever since they hired Brian O'Connor, you got to fill a lot of positions. Several guys leaving, several people coming. They've added 2 more. Tyler Pitzer from South Carolina is a right-handed pitcher. In his career, doesn't have a ton of action. He's been at South Carolina. He's 8-1, so he has a really good record. But his ERA is at a 5.63, so it's on the higher end. But he's played a lot of ball, 38 games. Probably a guy that you will want as, again, adding more depth to your reliever and your staff as a whole is obviously big. But the other one, and this might be the biggest one, was Kevin. I'll probably mispronounce it, but Milewski is how I'm going to pronounce it. That might be, I might have butchered that, but
let's go with Milewski. So I mean, we're right there together.
Milewski, we'll go with it. So he was a catcher from Seton Hall. Had a massive season this year. He had he had 58 RBIs and 16 home runs. And it's funny, we were just talking last week. We didn't have any catchers on the roster, and then obviously Jackson Owen pulls out of the portal, keep him, and then now you get one of the better ones in the country, in my opinion, especially one of the better ones in the portal.
Yeah.
And that's just a ton of power in this lineup now.
Yeah, it's a ton of power. And we even talked about how when it comes to a catcher, just don't be a detriment with the bat in hands. And this guy, 16 homers, bats over 300 every year. He's batted over 300, and his OPS over 1,000 every year. This guy is a legitimate threat at catcher who can hit. So that's a huge get. And if Jackson Owen stays healthy, we saw what he did at the JUCO rank. So if that translates, you have some serious pop at the catcher position, and both solid defensively too. So, and then Pitzer, he's a development guy. He's clearly got good stuff.
Right.
You look at his strikeouts per innings. As a freshman, was it 57 strikeouts in 43 innings?
Yeah.
And then this past year, 32 and 28. So, he's got the stuff to be a strikeout pitcher. He hasn't put it all together yet.
Right.
So,
and he's young. He's very young.
Very young. The home runs, those were a problem for him as a freshman. But last year, only 0.3 per 9 innings, which is very good. You like to see that.
He allowed 1 all season.
Yeah, and he's pitching in the summer league right now, doing very well in the summer league through his 2 games there. So maybe it's one of those things he's starting to kind of turn a corner. You put him maybe in more lower leverage situations to start the year, build some confidence, and you might have a real piece.
Yeah, and that's, we see this with so many players that by that 3rd year, they're starting to round into form. And then they're really starting to take off at that point. And so obviously you have to manage that and see if that's where he's at. But worst case, he's at least a legit bullpen guy, which we needed. I mean, again, we talked about this so much. We needed more capable arms on staff, not just in the starting roles, but also in the bullpen roles. And that's what they've done in this transfer portal cycle. They've attacked both people that you think can be stars. Now, I don't think they have a legit ace yet. But I think Valencias obviously has the potential to be a legit
ace.
Has the
stuff. He just has
right. And he was a true freshman last year. And I would not be shocked if he didn't take that leap and be that ace this year. Right. I wouldn't be shocked if Evan took the leap because of the way he was pitching at the end of the year and became that ace. But
not if McPherson did either. I mean,
McPherson had a ton of stuff.
He flashed. So I mean,
right. There's just a lot of question marks. So we got to see if any of them step up to become a legit ace. But if you have, let's say 2 or 3 solid starters, but a really good bullpen, that can make up for not having that ace.
Yeah. And we've seen that work not as often in college, but we see it plenty in Major League Baseball.
Right.
So you didn't have that true ace, but you basically have 5 starters that would be a number 2 on everyone's staff, to where you might be one day you're outmatched, but the rest of the series you have the better pitcher.
Right.
And that's, I mean, if you can't get a true ace's ace, which there are very few real aces. Every staff has an ace, but not every ace is a real ace.
Yeah. Right.
And so if you can't find that guy, building a team of just like number 2, number 3 starters, that's the way to go, because then, you're not going to, I mean, when you go up against those guys who are one of the 4 or 5 best pitchers in all of baseball, odds are you're losing that game anyway, no matter who you go out there. So you don't concede that game, but you set yourself up to win the rest of them. That's not a bad strategy either.
No, you're right. You're right on the money with that. And so we'll see what ends up happening. See if anyone does become a legit ace, or if you just have, like what you mentioned, 5 number 2s or whatever, and several movement. That's not a bad thing either. But Milewski, I just think that is such a big signing for them. And he's also playing in summer league right now. He's played, 6 games, 6 RBIs. Hasn't played great in the summer league, but no, he's been great at Seton Hall his 2 seasons there. And again, we talked about it last week with Jackson Owen. When you have a catcher, you just want them to be the leader of the team, be really good defensively, and just get clutch hits when they can. You don't have to have this catcher that's this mammoth home run hitter and all this stuff.
But now you do.
Like, it's always a plus when you have that guy.
Right.
But if you just had a guy that's a leader, plays good defense, and it's just a consistent hitter, you've got a really good player right there. Now, if you add in the home run threat, now it's an even bigger threat for your lineup because not a lot of teams have catchers that have that home run threat. And so that was just a massive signing, especially like we said, of where they were with just Jackson Owen on staff. And we think Jackson Owen has a lot of potential, especially what he did at the JUCO ranks. Yep. But he's also a guy that hasn't done a whole lot at Mississippi State or at the Power 5 SEC rank. And so it still kind of remains to be seen what kind of player he is, whereas we know what Milewski is. Now, again, that's at Seton Hall. That's at a lower level. That's not at the SEC level. So he still has to prove that. But a lot of that can carry over. Baseball is the one sport that you see more of that than other sports. Like typically, if you can play at almost any level.
Yeah, it's very true. And another thing we haven't really talked about too much, Milewski's young. I mean, he's coming in as a junior, still got 2 years. This lineup is deep now. And that's another thing. Yeah, we might not have the true ace, but we have how many guys hit 15 home runs on this?
A lot, yeah.
Now, I mean, this team is going to rake if everyone, no injuries, they play up to what they have in their careers. This lineup is going to be rough on opposing pitchers.
Now just add Henry Ford.
Just add
that. Maybe add Becker too. You add Henry Ford and Becker, man.
We're going to Omaha.
Yeah, you're going to Omaha for sure. So we'll see what happens. But all right, coming up next, we got our top dog of the week. Again, I feel like I say this every week, but I'm definitely going outside the box this week. So you won't want to miss that. That's coming up next. All right, well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Landon, who's your top dog of the week?
I am not going outside the box and staying very on brand. I'm going with Phil Loadholt. I mean, he had a great recruiting week, bringing in, the Steen brother, and then I'm not even going to try to remember which one it is at this point. Jaden Ross and Charles Humphrey. I mean, getting 3 big-time lineman commits. This team needs help on the O-line, and he's got 3 guys who look like in 2 years you're probably looking at some starters.
Yeah. No, I like that one. I went outside the box because when you have a big event like they did, recruiting weekend, and you got several commit, and you got all these people raving about it, and you got several offers out there, and we think more are going to announce their commit. We think some of them are silent commits right now, and then we'll see what happens moving on. That takes the entire recruiting staff to do that. And so I want to give them props for that because, yes, the coaches have to then sell the pitch and the coaches have to do all this work, but the recruiting staff have to make sure that it's going to be this fun experience where the players come, remember what they just did, and then be like, you know what, I want to be there because of all this fun stuff. Now, the coaches have to sell them on the vision on the field.
Yeah.
So it's up to them too. It takes a collective effort from all of them. But I just want to give props to the recruiting staff because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of planning. And, we see several schools, and I don't know how they do it, where they do 2 or 3 big ones a year or during the summer. And I'm like, I don't know how you spend that much time figuring all this out. And so props to Mississippi State because obviously it worked because you got 2 commitments and now we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah, that's a great one. They don't get enough love, that recruiting staff. I mean, the lead recruiters, they always do, but the people who really spend that time scheduling things out, and because we don't see all the work. We see the social media results of the work. We don't even see this other stuff that goes on, but that is so much work. But yeah, definitely shout out to them, especially with how great this weekend seems to have been.
Yeah, and we saw tons of videos from the event. We saw tons of pictures from the event. It did look like a really fun time being in Starkville for that. And so, and obviously it worked. Whatever they did and whatever the pitch was from the coaches has worked up to this point. Again, we got to get more commits because I feel like, and I think you would agree with this, if come the season we look back and only 2 commits came out of that week, you'd be a little down on it. Now, sounds like there's been several silent commits, but those aren't committed until they actually say it. Like I know people get really excited about silent commits, and I get it because they have committed. But if they haven't officially announced it, it's just hard to get too excited for it because we've seen several times where a kid silent commits, then starts talking to other teams and all this. Yeah, and then he commits somewhere else when he announces his commitment, and guys are like, "What? I thought he was committed to us." And that stuff happens all the time. And so still, there should be a lot to be excited about because I do feel a lot of commitments are going to come out of this. I say a lot, 4 or more.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think there's probably, like I said, probably in the next week, we'll probably hear 3 or 4 more come out. And then it might be a couple months, but, maybe a couple more of those guys do announce farther down the road. Yeah, we mentioned it earlier, they got to start picking up the pace a little bit on some of the the defense. Defense have been a little bit more of those higher end guys. Just need a couple of them to really, if they want to push this recruiting class into the top 25, they have to.
Yeah, because I mentioned the worry about anytime you get an offensive coach, but it's even more so because when an offensive coach takes over a team that was not great on talent on offense and not great on talent on defense, he's going to focus on the offense first. And that can sometimes bite you, especially in the SEC. You need to make sure you're doing a good focus on both. And that's also the worry when you have a first-time head coach because he doesn't know how to navigate that. So we'll see what ends up happening with this class, and hopefully they can round it out with some solid commits, especially on defense, especially on offense. But, TJ White, again, come on, July 1st. Let's hopefully that one comes. So, all right. Well, thanks for making Locked On Mississippi State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out The Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Jaron. Check out my work over on Athlon Sports. That's Landon. Follow us, Locked On Mississippi State. We're on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. We post daily videos, Monday through Friday. We also post a comment every single time on our YouTube videos. We love your feedback on that. We love interacting with you guys. If there's something you want us to talk about this summer, like some kind of topic, let us know that in the comments also. Also, we do a poll. It's a separate question. We love your interaction on that. So let's go through Friday's poll. Remember, we talked about the college football playoff format. We asked, what is your preferred college football playoff format? They said 43% said use a computer model like the BCS. That's what Landon and I said as well. 5 automatic qualifiers plus 11 at-large teams got 26%. 4 automatic qualifiers from Power 4 conferences got 22%. And 9% was other. So, and let's see. Someone said 14 playoff was the perfect balance in the comments. So, we'll see what ends up happening once that all gets settled out. But I think Landon and I, and 43% of you are all on lockstep with the BCS model coming back. So, I don't think that will happen, but it would be fun. But
it feels wrong saying it too.
Right. Until next time, Hail State.
Hail State.